Hello, I'm a few minutes early today. So we are working on block 9 and 10. Let me know if you're having any issues or questions or something's not going together for you. That's what I'm here for. I'm hopefully walking through each step that you need to in order to help you learn. These these rulers are amazing. I just love Deb Tucker's rulers. I've always loved Deb Tucker's rulers. They're who her rulers are the only rulers that I sell on a consistent basis. If you buy her rulers, you don't need all the extra ones. Um, let me tell you, trust me, I have been quilting for a very long time. I have hundreds of rulers because I bought all those rulers before I found Deb Tucker. And a lot of them you'll never use again. But if you have Deb Studio 180 rulers, you can handle any block. I'm a few minutes early. I'm tired. It's been a crazy week, busy week. Hubby is having issues with his prosthetic, so we're going back to the prosthetic doctor on Valentine's Day. Go figure. But you know, can't. There's nothing to be done about it. He needs to go because he can't use his prosthetic until we go to the doctors again. So this is a long process. Now, the doctor said, oh, yeah, he'll be walking by Christmas. Well, what they forget to tell you is, yeah, he might have the prosthetic by Christmas. And yes, he might be walking, but he's walking very slowly with a walker. It's not like he's just getting off and, oh, okay, we've got his prosthetic and everything's all set and let's go. No, this is probably another year's worth of crap before he can actually walk on his own. A lot of PT, a lot of trials. This is not his last prosthetic. This is just his first prosthetic. So we're going to go back there and they're going to have to drill a hole in it. It's going to be some fittings. Once he gets to the point where he's walking with a walker really well with this prosthetic and we don't have any troubles, then they're going to make him another prosthetic and we go through the process all over again. It's, and it's not a big deal in the fact that I'm not complaining. I'm just tired. This has been a 2-year process. And every time we have to go back to the prosthetic and Chris stops walking or using his prosthetic for a few weeks, it's like going back to square one again. And right now we're at that process where he's not using his prosthetic again because it's too painful. So we've got to adjust the prosthetic. It's just, I'm tired. I'm looking forward to in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks of being in Daytona with my girlfriends because I need it. I need some time away, some fun, some laughs, maybe some wine, maybe a lot of wine. We're going to the Daytona Quilt Show and we've got a Airbnb and we're going to have so much fun. Even if we just sit, walk around and don't spend a dime, but just sit and sew at the Airbnb, I'm going to be happy because I need some downtime. Just a little bit. I'm tired. Anybody else going to the Daytona Quilt Show? As I told my previous class, I've been in Florida 12 years. This is the first time I'm going to a Daytona Quilt Show. Because normally I'm working in my shop. Now that I don't have a brick and mortar store and I'm doing everything online, I can actually go and have some fun. I'm looking forward to fun. I want fun. All right, I'm going to start a few minutes early. And if you come in here, let me know. And if you have any questions, let me know. But we're going to get this party started. All right, we're on block 9. And we're going to start with making the hourglass. This is a really simple block to do. You're going to start with 2 half square triangles and you're going to lay them right sides together, opposites, so that your fabrics are opposite each other. I have a tendency of pinning this this block, which I don't pin a lot, but I want my dog ears to be even. And I'm going to set my seams, align my seams right up against each other. And I'm going to put a quick pin on this side. Whoops, I'm sorry. Nola has decided to wake up. Miss Nola, stop. Nola. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side and put a pin. Now, you know me, I don't pin a lot, but I am with this one because I don't want those seams to be out of order. I don't want them to get wonky. Once you've done this, then you're going to take a ruler and we're going to go opposite this seam and draw a line from corner to corner. And then just like you do have square triangles, whoops, Nola, come lay down. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on each side of the line. So now we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on each side of that line. Nola, why are you whining? Here, everybody. Come here, baby. And Yoda. So if you're like me, you have a 1/4 inch foot with a guide. I just put the guide right on my line and sew on each side of the line. Now we're going to take our scissor. You can do this with a rotary cutter or whatever. I find with the smaller ones, it's just easy to cut with a scissor. And cut right on the line. And now with these, I will spin my seam. Okay, so I'm going to pull it so that we make the little square 4 patch. And then I'm going to iron my seams like that so that they spin in the same direction. All right. And I usually will iron it a quick iron from the back. I get away from my iron heat up. And then I'll iron it and use best press from the front. Nola, go ahead now. Come on. I can't go where my feet are going. She wants to go underneath the table. She's been in a weird mood the last week. She's kind of skittish all over the place. Huh? All right, go lay down. Now, because I pin these, my points all in the center line up perfectly. If I have a tendency, if I don't pin them, they get a little wonky or they'll get off center. That's why I pin them. One. So there's my second one. All right. Oops. I try to rush it when my iron's not heat up. It just takes a little bit longer. Well, I think she hears the one of the landscapers outside. That's why she's freaking out. She can hear maybe my neighbor's getting her yard done. Okay. Now we've got to trim these up because they're too big. So we're going to use our Tucker trimmer. And we got to trim them up to 3.5 inches. So in order to do this, you've got your whole numbers on one side and our 1/2 inch numbers on the other side. Nola, go. Come on, move. So all I'm going to do is put my 3.5 inch line right on my seam here. And I have my diagonal line down this seam. And we're going to cut one side and one side. And then we're going to turn the ruler 100 and the piece 180 pieces and 180 degrees, I'm sorry, and cut the other side. Okay, now we're going to turn it 180 degrees. We're going to use our 3.5 inch on this side, making sure our marks, our lines are still on our seams. And then we're going to cut this side and the top. Okay, there's one. We're going to do it again. Our 3.5 inch mark is on our diagonal seam. We've got this diagonal line on the other seam, and they will meet in the middle. I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. Get our other side. I'm going to do 3.5 inch this way and this way, making sure our other marks are on our seams. And we're going to do it again. There we go. Now, get rid of my mess. This one's going to go here. And this one's going to go there. Okay, the only thing left that we have to make are these little corner pop units. And they are at the 1.5 inch mark. Okay, hold on. So we have these units here. All right, and they are going to be just as we cut them off the fabric. So they're going to be wrong sides together. This is, if you don't do this, you won't have mirror pieces. You're going to take the corner pop ruler. Where are you? There you are. We want the 1.5 inch mark. So we put the 1.5 inch mark on the bottom, and it doesn't matter whether you cut this side or this side, you know, top or bottom. And we've got the diagonal line on this side. And we're going to trim it off. I've been cutting a lot with the Lakeshore House quilt, so I think it's going to be time to put in another rotary cutter blade, even though I just put a new one in, but there's been a lot of cutting. Here is our oversized square that we're going to cut in half diagonally, and that's what we're going to use to put on the corner that we just cut off. So I'm just going to cut it in half. They are much bigger than you need. And then we're going to sew it on. When you sew these on, hold on a second. Which ones I need? when you sew this on, obviously you're going to sew them right sides together, but I'm looking at it from the larger unit, not from the triangle piece. So then I can just eyeball, making sure my two dog ears are roughly the same size. So when I sew it, I'm sewing it from this side, just so I can keep an eye on the dog ears. Now, I'm going to iron this over, and then we're going to use the corner pop ruler again. Oh, hold on. I missed it. After I'm done ironing this, that's better. Okay, then we're going to use the corner pop to square it off again. The nice thing about using the corner pop is if your seam needs to go one way or the other, using the corner pop gives you a better seam. So you can iron the seam either way and it's not going to be bulky. All right. Now it looks wonky. And but it's not going to look wonky for very long. See how it's off of here and over here. It's messy. Now we're going to use the corner pop. And we're going to use this side of the ruler where our diagonal marks are. We cut a 1.5 inch off, and now we're going to cut 1.5 inch off again. So we're going to put the 1.5 inch line, diagonal line on our seam. And then we're going to put the edge of the ruler here and here. There you go. There's our unit. Now we can put this square together, this block together. Okay. There is our entire block. And I lay them out like this all the time, anything that I'm sewing, because it's easy to get distracted. I have a dog in here and calls, phone calls, and my daughter and my husband. So if I get called away, I know where I was. So now I'm just going to put it together like this in these rows and then pull the rest of the rows together. So the next one, because I've already done this part, is just putting these together. Oops, wrong one. And these are really easy to line up. All I did was line up my seams at the end. I don't even pin this one. I'm just going to hold it down with my hand. There you go. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So all I'm doing is lining up my seams on the diagonal seams. Hold it there. And then sew it. Thread. Now, I am going to iron these seams. Let's see. if we lay this down in. Okay, so I'm going to iron these seams in this way because my other seams I'll show you when I get to that point are going the opposite direction. I'm tired. After this, I gotta go work on some machines and then go back to my Lakeshore Hosta quilt. See how pretty I'm working on. Aren't they pretty? Paper pieces. I'm having fun. You have to have fun. I'm having a lot of fun working on that quilt. All right. Now, so these seams here are out. This seam is in. And that way we can line them up with nesting our seams in different direction, in opposite directions. And all of the seams are in opposite directions. So that's another reason why keep laying it back down helps, because then I can see exactly where the next set of seams have to go. Okay. Just go slow. There's a lot of seams in here, and we want to make sure all of our seams stay where they need to. So go slow. If you spent all that time and energy ironing the seams in a certain direction, you want them to stay in that direction. I stop with my needle down in the seam before I take the pin out. Helps keep my seams aligned. See, right here we have an X, and I want to be on the right side of the X, just by a thread length, or thread width. That will make sure I don't cut off my points. There we go. Now we can add this one on. And actually, we'll do this one first. We'll put these blocks together. Really simple. Once you get all the pieces, you just have to take it one step at a time. Just one line at a time, one step at a time. When I'm working on this quilt, will cut my blocks out one at a time and then sew it. And I'll cut the next block out and sew it. And in the directions, I take it one step at a time. I don't go ahead, I don't go forward, just one step at a time. Just to keep up myself on track. I have a hard enough time just making sure my fabric's on the right side. I'm getting too old. These white on whites and some of these fabrics that are tone on tone are a lot harder. Oops, a lot harder to see. My needle came unthreaded again. All right. Pretty, pretty. Let's see. This one's going to go here. Right now, I've got all of my seams going towards the outside, so these seams are going to go towards the inside. Whoops. Now, we can put this one on first and then put this one together. Or you could keep doing it one in a adding one row at a time. It's half dozen in another. It really doesn't matter. Okay. All our seams again are opposite, so they will nest together nicely. And it's gonna have to go down each seam one at a time and align them and pin them. Now, as you can see, my pins are all diagonal. And the reason I do that, I'll put this last one in, then I'll show you. The reason I put them on a diagonal is it's easier to make sure my seams stay aligned. You spend a lot of time getting the seams aligned, and then sometimes the action of just taking the pin out will tweak them. So I start sewing from this top side and I come down. With the pin on an angle like this, I can stop with my needle down in my seam before I actually have to take my pin out. And then, so I stop with my needle down on the seam, then take my pin out. Then I can sew, stop with my needle down in my seam, and then I can take my pin out. There's no seam up here that we have to worry about, but right here we have an X, and we want to make sure we're on the right side by a thread width of that X and of this X, and that will make sure that we don't cut off any of the points. The nice thing about Studio 180 and Dick Tucker's rulers is everything is made bigger and you trim it down. So it's virtually impossible for you to mess it up. They're all going to be the right size. That's one of the reasons why it's a lot less stressful. And that's the major reason why I love Deb Tucker's rulers. For a beginner, I wish I had found them in the beginning when I first started quilting. It would have made my life so much easier. But that's why I try to let everybody know, especially my new people, how much better they are. Here we go. It's good enough for me. All right, now there are a lot. I don't think there's an, yeah, I'm gonna iron it down. Sometimes you just gotta check and make sure the seams aren't as bulky one way or the other, because you really don't want bulky seams. Now, or when you get to the stage of actually free motion quilting it, you definitely don't want bulky seams, because that's going to make quilting it very difficult, if not impossible. Almost done with block 9. All right. Now we just have to put our final seam together and sew it. When the seams nest together, you'll feel it. They're not going to be bulky. Everything lines up nicely. If it's bulky, the seam, then you know you got a problem. It's not right. Come on. I'm going to sew it with this part on top so that I can, um, so that I don't sew over this X. I want to be on the right side of the X, not down here, because then you're going to cut off your point. Just go slow. Voila. Isn't it pretty? Other than my scraggly threads all over the place. I am literally between this one and Lakeshore Hosta paper piecing. I am covered in threads. All right, that's that one. Now we have block 10. And there's not a lot to do with this one that we haven't already done. But I do want to show you how to do these corner pop sides. I've used these block types a lot and they're really fun to do and it's really, really easy. Okay. The rest of this is just half square triangles, a rail, two fabric rail, and then this is the flying geese where we've cut the corner pop using corner pop and put a new triangle on. We've already done this part. So I'm going to show you how to do these corner units, not using the same exact fabric, but you'll get the idea. We start with making our half square triangles. So we've got two half square triangles. Once you cut them apart, and I'm going to iron my fabric towards the dark side. All right. Now we have our two half square triangles. We are not going to trim these up yet. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me remind myself before I go too far ahead. Hold on. Yes, we are going to trim these up now. Sorry. I'm a dingling. What can I say? That's why I said to double check, go one step at a time. So we've got our half square triangles and we're going to trim them up to 2.5 inch squares. 2.5, are they 2.5? Do. Yep, 2.5 inch. So the fabric I'm using is very, no, that can't be right. Oh no, that's a different one. Hold on. Never mind. That's not right. Hold on. Sorry for the confusion. No, they're gonna be 3.5 inch. Okay, 3.5 inch. Almost made a boo-boo. Mm, 2.5 were these little ones in here. That's what I was reading. But the big ones on the outside are not 2.5. They're 3.5. All right. Now we're ready. And we're going to use the corner pop again. So my background is the white. On here, my background is this periwinkle. So that's whatever your background fabric color is, that's what the corner pop is going to be. And we are going to cut 1.5 inches off of your, what do you call it? Off of the non-background fabric. Oops, it's this one. So this is my 1.5 right here, and I'm using it right on the corner, and that's where it shows me my using the corner pop what my other background fabric corner is going to be. Hopefully this makes sense. Okay, then you have your replacement triangle, your replacement square that you're going to cut in half for your replacement triangles. Okay, and then when you sew it, again, I'm going to sew it so that I can see the dog ears and eyeball, making sure that they are roughly the same size. So I'm going to sew it on this side. And then I'm going to iron this out. It looks simple, but you can put a bunch of these together and they look really cool. Now we got to trim this up. So we cut off 1.5 inch. So that's when we're going to use this 1.5 inch side. And it's just a matter of putting the 1.5 inch line on your seam. and making sure the edge of the ruler here and the edge of the ruler here match the side of your block. And then trim it up. There you go. Isn't that cool? I think these are cool. It's simple, but there's a lot you can do with them. That's one of the great things that I personally love about Studio 180 rulers. I design a lot of quilts just on paper. So half the time I have no idea how big the blocks are until I try to put everything together. With the Studio 180 rulers, every one of them comes with instructions, and in the instructions it tells you what size to cut everything for a specific size block, or you can use the technique sheets to make sure you cut everything exactly the size you need for whatever size block you want, which as a designer is amazing because that means I don't have to sit there and do all the math trying to figure out. I can make a design on paper and very easily figure out what I need to cut without going crazy. So for me, they're the Deb Tucker rulers are by far the best rulers out there. Now I'm just going to line up all my seams. This diagonal seam I don't pin. I'm just going to make sure it's lined up before I put it under my foot. All right. Beauteous, beautiful. Hold on. I just gotta cut some of my threads. There you go. Whoops. Pretty, pretty. Block 10. Simple. All right, everybody. That's it for this week. So next week, we've got 2 more weeks of classes. Then I've got a week off for the Daytona Quilt Show. I'll make sure I post it so everybody doesn't miss a class. Let me know if you have any questions or problems. If you need any help whatsoever, please just let me know. I don't want you to get frustrated with any of this. So I hope you have a lovely day and the rest of your weekend is wonderful. Bye.